The war in Ukraine has brought Russia and NATO more closer to get in war than ever before. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Vladimir Putin could attack a NATO country within 5 years to test the alliance. Zelensky told Sky News that he did not believe Putin is ready now because today Ukraine is holding him up. He has no time to drill the army. But starting from 2030, Putin can have significantly greater capabilities. Although Ukraine is not a NATO member, if Moscow were to attack one of Ukraine's allies, that is, then all other NATO countries, including the US, would be compelled, under Article 5 of the NATO agreement, the Mutual Assistance Clause, to come to their aid. And, together, their substantial firepower could give NATO the edge in all-out war. A full-scale attack on a NATO member is not as far-fetched as it might seem, according to Germany's Chief of Defense, General Carsten Brewer. Russia has been producing hundreds of tanks a year, he told the BBC, enough to attack a NATO Baltic state by the end of the decade. And the ammunition supplies, such as drones, missiles, and artillery shells, that Russia is also producing, aren't all going to the war in Ukraine. There's a buildup of the stocks too, the general said. He identified the Suwałki Gap, an area on the Russia border with Poland, Lithuania, and Belarus, as the most vulnerable area for an invasion that could trigger a larger war between Russia and the US. NATO's military capability. In his first term, Donald Trump repeatedly criticized member states for failing to meet their defense spending obligations, and he has ramped up criticism of the alliance since returning to the White House. The U.S. is by far NATO's biggest player and spends almost as much on defense as the next 10 spenders in the world combined. Its total in 2023 was about $916 billion, $715 billion, according to Statista, nearly 40% of the total military spending worldwide that year. The UK sits in sixth place with spending of $74.9 billion, $60 billion. President Trump's tepid enthusiasm for NATO has prompted its members to consider how to reduce their reliance on the U.S. for defense, especially after he made a point of saying that Putin is a friend who should have been included in the G7 summit in Canada in June, and resisted calls to impose harsher sanctions on Russia. The UK government said in May that it would strive to spend 3.5% of its GDP on defense. However, it may now be forced to commit a further 1.5% to keep the U.S. on side, said Sky News. Defense spending of 5% was the norm among NATO countries during the Cold War. Collectively, the 32 members of NATO can field a powerful and modern fighting force, said Kyiv Independent, but its European contingent, at least, faces ammunition shortages, a fragmented defense industry, and insufficient air defense coverage. Western armies, with their artillery and armored vehicles, are out of date, whereas it is Ukraine that today has perhaps the most combat-ready army in Europe, wrote Oleg Dunda, a member of parliament for Ukraine, in The Spectator. The U.S. has more weaponry, but Ukraine's army is unique in having adapted to the new, mostly electronic, unmanned systems that are the most successful elements of the Russian barrage. A potential invasion of the Baltic states might not involve a single tank. The latest German intelligence assessment suggests Putin may seek to challenge how seriously that commitment would be honored, said UK Defense Journal. In a February report, Danish intelligence said Russia could engage in a local war with a neighboring country within 6 months and pose a credible threat to one or more NATO countries within 2 years. Russia's military capability. Despite international sanctions and its well-publicized struggles in Ukraine, Russia has accelerated its military production, said the defense news site. Military spending has surged to an estimated $120 billion, $103 billion in 2025, equivalent to over 6% of GDP, nearly quadrupling the country's 2021 defense budget. The German intelligence service and army believe the Russian war economy is generating more output than is required solely for operations in Ukraine, suggesting it could be preparing for a wider confrontation. The two forces are evenly matched in terms of known nuclear capability, with the NATO nuclear powers, the US, UK, and France, able to field 5,559 nuclear warheads to Russia's 5,580. Russia's war economy has so far remained remarkably resilient in the face of Western sanctions. This has allowed its military-industrial complex to churn out tanks and infantry fighting vehicles, missiles, ammunition, and artillery pieces, although it still cannot keep up with battlefield losses, said Al Jazeera. Russia is now operating with a society that seems prepared to bear any costs imposed by its leadership, said Foreign Policy, while NATO's cohesion is frayed and the citizens of its member nations have yet to accept the trade-offs in terms of spending that a war economy demands. Who will win the war, Russia or NATO? Despite these minor improvements, Russia is in no shape to take on NATO. The alliance has been revitalized by Russia's invasion in 2022, and defense spending of its members has soared. Production of arms in Europe and the United States has spiked dramatically as the war has given Western military planners an idea of the amounts of weapons NATO forces will need in the event of a major war. The quality of NATO's troops is far better in terms of training and equipment. Differences in command and control between countries have been ironed out after decades of military cooperation and exercises. Western air forces focus on a campaign of complex air operations designed to destroy an opponent's ability to see, move, produce, and sustain itself. Combined with the notable difference in the quality of Western weapons, all this adds up to the conclusion that NATO would quickly prevail in any conventional war against Russia, a danger being that a series of defeats might force Moscow to use tactical nuclear weapons or face total defeat. With an integrated command structure developed over decades, better trained and equipped troops, and the notable difference in the quality of Western weapons, all this adds up to the conclusion that NATO would quickly prevail in any conventional war against Russia, said Al Jazeera. Yet herein lies the danger that a series of defeats might force Moscow to use tactical nuclear weapons or face total defeat. In conclusion, Western intelligence agencies believe that a war could start very soon. NATO has been working hard to get ready by sending more soldiers to the eastern countries, improving their weapons and equipment, and trying to stay united as a group. However, there are still some problems that could make things difficult, like slow decision-making, disagreements between member countries, and new types of fighting that are harder to predict. Even though NATO has made progress, the real test will be if they can quickly come together and act strongly to protect their members if war actually begins. Their readiness will be judged by how well they respond, not just by their plans or promises. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and share your POV in comment section.